What's up, folks? Welcome back to TacticalTortoise. My name is Trevi, and we're on a new webcam today. I'm going to try it out and see how it goes. So if you like it, let me know down in the comments. We're talking about a new FAQ that just dropped for Arks of Omen that dramatically changes the format and how a lot of factions will interact with it. This is the Supreme Commander update for Arks of Omen, and this is a doozy. As always, if you like my 40k content, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, all that stuff. You know the drill. It's YouTube. Just do the YouTube things. Let's talk about some updates. Now, for those who don't know, a bunch of FAQs have dropped in the wake of Ark of Omen that change how individual factions are going to work alongside the rule set proper. For the most part, this is pretty banal stuff that was kind of hinted at before the rule set officially released, where any faction that relied on a particular type of detachment, most notably Outriders and Vanguards, alongside some super heavy detachments in factions like Imperial and Chaos Knights, have been altered so that they work alongside Arks of Omen detachments. So, for example, if you're Raven Wing or Deathwing, which require Outrider or Vanguard detachments respectively, all of their abilities will still trigger if they are in an Arks of Omen detachment. Now, in the transition, the unit type that was left on the wayside were Supreme Commanders. And when I ranked all of the factions in the game, I touched on this a couple of different times because there are several factions in 40k that rely super heavily on a particular Supreme Commander character. I'm thinking of Necrons in particular. The Silent King is such a huge force multiplier and a real benefit to playing that army that not being able to include him in your Arks of Omen detachments was super brutal. And that has all changed now. For the most part, because most factions could not bring multiple sub-factions within a single detachment, that restricted a lot of Supreme Commanders from going in lists. In the previous version of the game in the Nephilim season, you could just get around that by having them in a second detachment, a Supreme Command detachment, which could include only them. That is no longer the case, however. Arks of Omen only allows your allied detachments as well as your single Arks of Omen detachment, and I think GW just forgot that a lot of factions were designed around these super expensive, super powerful, and important characters. So, in the newest FAQ to the Arks of Omen book, we see a bullet-pointed rule with special rules for most of the particular Supreme Commanders in the game. These allow you to bring specifically the Silent King, Abaddon, Commander Shadowsun, Belisarius Cawl, and any Astartes Primarch, which currently just means Guilliman, but there is an implication that we may be getting more Primarch characters in the not-too-distant future, so this is a little bit of future-proofing for that. In an Arks of Omen detachment of the same type of sub-faction that they belong to. So, Commander Shadowsun, for example, can be brought inside a bracketed Tau Sept detachment. Abaddon can be brought in to a bracketed Legion detachment. Belisarius Cawl for Forge World and any of those Primarchs, so Guilliman currently, can be brought into any chapter detachment. Now, there's a note here that specifies that those will not break any sub-faction abilities. Everyone's going to get their detachment abilities, even though they may share a detachment with a model outside of their sub-faction. Now, in my opinion, this is a huge deal, especially for Tau, Heretic Astartes, and Necrons. Like I said before, the Silent King was integral to a lot of Necron lists, and he was kind of required to make a lot of them work, and he can now be brought alongside. I think we can reevaluate the power level of a lot of Heretic Astartes legions now that Abaddon can be brought in. Importantly, he can't be brought in any Chaos detachment, so we've lost access to like the Abaddon Walking the Dogs list, where he gets brought in alongside a bunch of War Dogs. However, armies like Emperor's Children that were already strong are now made even stronger by the re-inclusion of Abaddon, who was kind of pivotal to how the faction played previously. Now, the most transformative change here is going to be to those Astartes Primarchs. Guilliman's typically considered one of the benefits of playing Ultramarines. The Ultramarines' abilities and stratagems and sub-faction abilities are not that great. They have rapid redeployment, I guess, but otherwise they're just kind of doing their thing. But Guilliman is a huge force multiplier and a beat stick in and of his own right. And now you get to bring him in any Space Marine chapter. Now, he's obviously less effective outside of Ultramarines since he doesn't give you that full hit reroll aura that he normally would, but he does give you a nice reroll ones aura and a charge buff, so he can operate sort of like a captain. In addition, Guilliman being a Lord of War and also not captain keyworded opens up some interesting implications for other chapters, being able to bring multiple Smash characters alongside Guilliman. You could potentially include 4 HQs and Guilliman in a Space Marine detachment, which, I don't know, maybe there's a build in there somewhere. I'm thinking maybe we take Talon Masters. That could be fun. So whether Gilliman sees play in chapters outside of Ultramarines, I don't know. He is a big investment, but I think it's an interesting option and certainly worth considering if you're playing Space Marines, especially outside Iron Hands, and need to source that huge reroll ones. So yeah, huge changes to the Arks of Omen format just a week after launch. Pretty transformative, to be honest, and I think it's time to reevaluate some of our faction positions. The most hilarious part of this change to me is that this speaks to the fact that they just forgot Supreme Command detachments existed. I think that the most elegant change would have been to allow you to include a Supreme Command in place of your allied detachment. So instead of being able to take a unit of Armigers or some guys out of Leagues of Votann, you could take your Supreme Commander outside your Arks of Omen detachment and unlock more flexibility there. For the most part, they were sort of treated like allies anyway, oftentimes being brought into subfactions that were not their own. But, you know, this also works. We also saw a couple minor changes to Drukhari. Drukhari got the ability to take themselves as an ally. So if you take an Arks of Omen detachment that's dedicated to one of the 3 Drukhari subfactions, Cabals, Covens, or Cults, then you can take an ally detachment out of one of the other of the styles of subfaction, which is a nice quality of life change. This mostly allows for additional flexibility when creating your Drukhari army. The downside of the initial release in Arks of Omen was that you were basically locked into creating a real Space Raid detachment out of your Arks of Omen detachment. Otherwise, you were locked behind only having subfaction abilities from one of the different subfactions. If you choose Real Space Raid and you have the requisite Archon, Succubus, and Homunculus, alongside the Witches, Grotesques, and Cabalite Warriors that unlock the abilities of the Real Space Raid, all of your units would get their Obsession, but if you didn't do that, only one style of subfaction would get their Obsession. Now you can take a single subfaction Arks of Omen detachment and a second single subfaction Allied detachment, and you get your subfaction abilities on both. The big deal here is that you're no longer pigeonholed into taking the Archon as your Warlord, which you are required to in Real Space Raid, which allows you to take Drazar as your Warlord, which is a huge deal because with his Warlord trait, Drazar is one of the most powerful single combatants in the game. Without it, it's basically Garbo. And the downside for Drukhari is that Tolerated Ambition, their Warlord trait, stratagem does not allow targeting on special characters. But anyway, that's all I have to say about that. A little bit of an update here, but I do think it's transformative to a lot of armies, and maybe hints at the fact that we might be getting more Primarch characters in the future, so very exciting. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of the video, but thanks as well to everyone who supports the channel, either over on Patreon at patreon.com/TacticalTortoise, YouTube channel members, Twitch subscribers. All you people are great. I love you. Remember to keep it classy, folks, and have happy wargaming. And let me know how my new webcam looks.